Howdy, folks. Welcome to Redneck Gone Green. I'm David Cobb. I am the redneck, and I have gone green, and I'm trying to convince you to do it too. But as a reminder for me, when I talk about going green, it's beyond Green Party, although that is certainly part of it. I absolutely believe that both the Democratic and Republican Party are bought and paid for by corporate interest. We, the people, need our own political party. So certainly Green Party. But I also mean green as in deep ecology, not merely environmentalism, but an understanding of the interconnectedness of all of life itself and nature. We are not above nature as humans. We are actually part of it. And this is a heartfelt call to return to the balance that existed before the enclosure movement, before capitalism, before industrialism, a return to how all humans once lived in right relationship. Now, looky here, y'all. Today is election day, November 5th, 2024. For those of you who are listening live, you know that. For those of you who are tuning in after the fact on either the podcast or watching on YouTube afterwards, we're coming at you on election day. The rest of the country has gone crazy on election day. So, of course, we're going to actually talk about that. But that's not all we're going to talk about today, because here on Redneck Gone Green, we talk about the importance of elections without becoming electoral fetishist, the need to build a much broader and deeper movement. So with that, I want to underscore that when I say the two-party system sucks, I mean the two-party system sucks, and it is literally failing us. The reality is that neither Kamala Harris or Donald Trump are the two best candidates that America could offer, not even of those two parties. But it's even deeper than that. I'm actually telling you what I believe that most of us know, and that is the two political parties are trying to pit each other, Americans, against each other. And one thing that they absolutely agree on is squashing alternative political parties or alternative voices. Here's another thing that they both agree on. That is the U.S. empire has to be defended at all costs. Here's another thing that they agree on. Capitalism and the neoliberal economic order must be continued. So this really explains a lot. And I think it's important that we take a look at how the approach that we're taking literally drives people to hate the other side without actually looking deeper into just what is really going on. There was a great article in Science magazine titled Political Sectarianism in America. And I'll quote from it. Democrats and Republicans, that is the 85% of U.S. citizens who do not identify as pure independents, have grown more contemptuous of opposing partisans for decades. And the study concludes this aversion exceeded their affection for their own party. In other words, it is encouraging people to hate the other side more than liking your own policies. And Lee Drutman, who wrote a great book called Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop, The Case for Multi-Party Democracy, explained, and I'll quote, America's two-party system goes back centuries. The threat today is new and different because the two parties are now truly distinct, a development that I date to the 2010 midterms. Until then, the two parties contained enough overlapping multitudes within them that the sort of bargaining and coalition building led to multi-party democracy could work inside the two-party system. No more, end quote. And this is where I think it's really important. And I'll speak for myself. Jackrabbit, who may or may not join us on the call, may have, I think, a difference of opinion. But I think it's important to recognize Kamala Harris is a neoliberal. She is a supporter of the empire. She is a supporter of neoliberal capitalist policies. Donald Trump and the Make America Great are neo-fascists, and they are leading us into a level of breaking societal norms that we've ever seen. It's something that we've never seen before. I want to be clear. For me, I'm personally voting for Jill Stein and the Green Party because I believe we need to build an alternative political party. But I also know that people I love, respect, and trust are casting votes differently than I am. And I respect that. and I'm not going to fuss with people. If folks have a strong conviction about it one way or the other, they are absolutely entitled to that. And I want to encourage people to share that. So, thank you, Catherine, welcoming us back in the chat. I want to encourage anybody who wants to weigh in on this notion of the election, because we are going to spend a couple of minutes on the election itself before I do shift gears into my trip to Barcelona and what I learned there. Dave. So Dave Petrovich, who is a frequent viewer and commenter here on Redneck Gone Green, says there was a wee bit of collaboration between Stein and Dela Cruz. Jill Stein, of course, the Green Party. Dela Cruz is the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'll confess, I didn't catch that wee bit of collaboration. I am happy to hear it and would love if you want to share with us actually what you saw, or if anybody who's listening who live wants to share what that was, because again, I didn't catch it. It was something that I was trying to encourage. From the beginning, I tried to get Cornel West and Jill Stein to work together, failed miserably on those efforts. But I do think that we need our own political party for sure. I think we have it in the Green Party. And again, I'll circle back to, from my perspective, what we're seeing is big picture. We are seeing an ecological collapse. It's not coming. It's here and getting worse. And the objective data for that is all around us. But wait, there's more, as if that's not horrific enough. That is literally an existential threat. But there's another problem, and that is capitalism itself is in it, not just end stage or late stage, it's an end stage. By that, I mean, even if there was some ecological fix, which I do not think is possible, but even if that happened, y'all, the economic system is collapsing, the one that we call capitalism, because capitalism requires the use of the surplus value of the labor of the worker to create profits. In other words, whoever owns the means of production puts people to work. And the only reason they put people to work is because they have been able to generate a profit off of their labor. That's literally the way it works. So here's the thing with automation, robotics, technology, now artificial intelligence, we're literally moving into a version of basically, if not labor less production, much less labor that is necessary. So that even for the capitalists, this system is going to be changing, because you cannot generate profit off of the surplus value of the labor. That means the entire economic system is changing. And that's why fascism is rising, not just in this country, but all across the globe. Fascism is rising for the same reason that it rose in the 1930s, when the entire global economic system was morphing from an agrarian one to an industrial one. And in that moment, there was confusion, there was polarization, like there was, how do I fit into this? And here's the thing, y'all. The fascists have an answer for that. And it's always an us versus them. And that's why I will say that Donald Trump and the Make America Great Again are neo-fascists. There is no doubt about it, because they have an us versus them. And the us is always white nationalist. It is always a blame immigrants, blame people of color, etc. Right? It is militaristic. This is how I see what is happening in politics today. But again, we make a mistake if we make it simply about Donald Trump. There are bigger objective forces that are at play. These bigger objective forces, again, the ecological collapse, the economic collapse, and what is beginning a political collapse. To be clear, the political system was never designed to solve the problem of economic injustice. It was never designed to solve the problem of white supremacy or racism. It was never designed to actually work for the average American. What I'm saying is that the political system can no longer maintain order. It is leading to a level of acute polarization, and it's going to be either, And the neoliberal center is collapsing, by the way. I really want to be super clear about this. Kamala Harris might squeak out a victory today, which we surely will not know. I mean, I will be absolutely shocked if we know who is actually going to be president of this empire by the end of tonight. Whoever it is, Harris or Trump, it's not going to be good for us or the planet. But having said that, the reality is that the neoliberal forces that the Democratic Party represents, those oligarchs, that center is collapsing, and we are heading into a moment where either some version of eco-socialism or some version of fascism is what's going to actually rule the day. The idea of the petty bourgeoisie democracy, I think, is failing. So that's how I see elections. I'm personally going to vote for Jill Stein and the Green Party, but again, respect people who cast their votes differently. I want to point out in the comments that Dave Petrovich says, in states where both candidates weren't on the ballot, campaigns encourage their supporters to vote for those who did make the ballot. All right, Dave, I'll admit that is a helpful sign. I'm sad that it between the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the Green Party, it came pretty late, but there it is. At least something did happen. So, and thanks for actually using the chat to let folks know. So, y'all, that's how I see the electoral process. Again, I think it's worth fighting or engaging in the electoral process, but I don't I don't have any hope that the electoral process is actually going to give us the world that I want to live in. In fact, there's a great study from Princeton University that concluded the same thing, that you could have, with a very high methodological research, to conclude what you could have learned by going in any pool hall or bowling alley in this country and ask, and that is, does it matter what ordinary Americans actually think? And the short answer is no, it doesn't. And there's actually a study on that. And I'm wondering, Jack, if you've got that queued up, I would love to share that with Redneck Gone Green listeners and viewers, because I think it's pretty telling. Again, this is a study from Princeton University. Hit it, Jack. It looks like it's ready to go.
Princeton University looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a pretty simple question. Does the government represent the people? Now, this is what they found. This axis here represents public support for any given idea. On the left at 0% are ideas that not a single American wants. On the right at 100% are ideas that everyone supports. This axis represents the likelihood of Congress passing a law that reflects any of these ideas, from a 0 to a 100% chance. On this graph, an ideal republic would look like this. If 50% of the public supports an idea, there's a 50% chance of it becoming law. If 80% of us support something, there's an 80% chance. You get the idea. Now, most Americans would probably agree that, with a few exceptions, we should be as close to this ideal as possible. Unfortunately, the way America actually works doesn't even come close. Take an idea that nobody supports, literally nobody, and it has about a 30% chance of becoming federal law. Now, take an incredibly popular idea, the most popular idea this country has ever seen, and there's also about a 30% chance of it becoming law. This means that the number of American voters for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. Put another way, and I'm just going to quote the Princeton study directly here, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. So if you've ever felt like your opinion doesn't matter and that the government doesn't really care what you think, well...
I think this is a really important point. The preference of the American people has a statistically insignificant, minuscule, near zero impact on elections or on policy. And I want to lift up Heather Young in the chat, who wrote, "Having worked in a state legislature before Citizens United, I can assure you the vast majority of bills are already decided before the legislative session even starts." So remember, folks, Citizens United was the 2010 Supreme Court decision that held that because corporations are persons with constitutional rights, that and that money is considered quote, free speech, that basically corporations and the wealthy can spend unlimited amounts of money in elections. And that's part of the reason what you're seeing is that our elections have literally become auctions. And another statistic is that in almost all, but not all, but almost all, whoever raises the most money in a race ends up winning. So we've really actually legalized bribery in this country with the Citizens United decision. And I really want to thank Heather for bringing that up. But again, back to the Princeton study, the preferences of the majority of the American people, their opinion about something has a statistically insignificant, minuscule, near zero impact on policy. Please hit play again, Jack.
You're right. But there's a catch. This flat line only accounts for the bottom 90% of income earners in America. Economic elites, business interests, people who can afford lobbyists, they get their own line. Look at how much closer their line is to the ideal. When they want something, the government is much more likely to do it. And when they don't, they have the power to completely block it from happening, no matter how much the rest of the country supports it. They get what they want, and guess who ends up paying?
So there you have it, folks. Corruption is basically legal in the United States of America. Bribery of our elected officials is basically legal. Dave Petrovich, again, a frequent commenter, said the golden rule, those who with the most gold rules. So the thing is, I'll get back to it. Like at the end of the day, I encourage people to vote, but I have no illusion that voting alone is going to actually get us to the world we want. So that's why I'm going to shift gears for us a little bit and report to you on my, unless Jackie, is there anything that you wanted to, I know that you had a couple of video clips that I know we played the one on the Princeton study. Were there others that you wanted to play before we get off of elections and get into the conversation around the, nope. Okay. So folks, let's shift gears a bit, because for me, the thing that's way more interesting and important is that I want to share with you the visit that Kali Acuno and I made to Barcelona in the Catalan region of Spain. And I had an amazing experience. First of all, if anybody who has ever been, it was my first time anywhere in Spain, and the Catalonians will tell you that they're not part of Spain. They're Catalonians. But the Barcelona experience was an amazing one, because what I saw was ordinary people who took the notion of the public incredibly seriously and different. And I mean, culturally, historically, in every way differently, down to public space is shared differently. Like you go down streets and you'll see like just in the middle of a boulevard that you'll be walking, there'll be a huge public area for parks. You'll see public art. You'll see high quality music and cultural events. I mean, it was an amazing thing. And in the middle of the city, a lot of the old factories have actually been basically through government and a partnership between both the municipal government, the Catalonian provincial government, and what we might call NGOs or non-governmental organizations or civil society, like partnerships that have literally taken over old factories and turned them not into what we would think of as public-private partnerships, which is where you have the corporate interest basically sucking out public money, but instead something different. You had groups like us, like ordinary people who were coming together and creating worker-owned cooperatives for both clothing and textiles and manufacturing or light manufacturing and carpentry, but also restaurant workers and service providers and healthcare and nurses within public spaces, officed in public spaces, and then doing economics. And this is what's really important. That is to say, they fired their bosses and are actually organized themselves within a business model. What's even deeper about that is that they have a clear and unequivocal commitment to a post-capitalist future and a return to a level of shared cooperative collaborative approach to economics. And you know what's really amazing is even amongst that, they have fascists who were part of the fascist government that are actually there amongst them. So it is a level of struggle and clarity about fascism that I don't think exists in the US. There is a clarity around how the neoliberal party engages. And I used to think that Barcelona and Camus was the only left party, but I found out there's another political party called the Coup there that is part of, let's call it the Catalonian independence movement of the left. So it's a very complex situation because what you have in Barcelona as the capital, I think it's the second largest city in all of the Republic of Spain. But there is an independence movement in the Basque region. There's an independence movement within the Catalonian region. And within, let's just keep it to Catalonia region, Barcelona and Valencia are part of that, right? Get this. In the Catalonian government, you have a left wing party and that is an independence-based party, and you have a right independence party. And then you have the nationalist fascist, and then you have the neoliberals, basically. So it's a very complex system. But what was interesting, the folks that I came into contact with had a real clarity about how that all intersected. And for me, I thought it was an incredibly insightful thing. And Dave, thank you. Worker self-directed enterprises or worker self-directed nonprofits. That I think is where we're really, that's where the juice is. That's where I want to go, right? And I am really excited to share. I will be bringing to you on this program as we go forward, guests from folks know that I am the co-coordinator of the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network. Well, I met several folks who were with the Catalonian Solidarity Economy Network. I'll have them on. I also met a lot of people from Venezuela, from Colombia, from Rojava that are actually like coming together and sharing best practices. And so there was a lot of agreement on how fascism is rising and that it's rising all across the world. There's also in almost everywhere except the US, I have to say, there's a genuine left that is cohering. In the US, we don't really have much of a left. And that's in large part because the Democratic Party has kind of occupied that space, and all of the effort to defeat Trump goes into, or defeat Republicans goes into that effort, and we don't have an independent left. Part of that is because of proportional representation, or the first past the post election system that we have, but part of it is because the American people, we have just not done a good job of articulating what the left really means. And I think that's something that I want to be doing going into 2025 is to really do that. So, to me, the lessons from Barcelona really have to do with understanding the history and the context. Remember, like Franco, an actual fascist, governed that country with an iron fist in a way that was not neo-fascism, it was explicit fascism. And they still exist in that in Spain, but you also have an independence movement that makes it all come together. Now, I'm going to shift gears because the last part of the program, we're actually going to, again, not go back to elections and the kind of like electoral fetishism that almost everybody else is doing today. Instead, I want to have a conversation about what is to be done. What can we actually be doing together? And that's why I want to invite everyone to a webinar titled Rising Together, Assessing the Post-Election Moment, Charting What's Next. That's going to happen next Tuesday, November 11th, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. The whole the whole point of this webinar is being brought to you by a series of organizations that are all part of the Resist and Build network. I want to let you know that it's actually being brought to you by Presente.org, the Progressive Magazine, the Democracy Collaborative, the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network, the Resist and Build Network, Shelter in Solidarity, the Laura Flanders Show, the People's Network for Landed Liberation, How We Win, and more are coming on together. So this is a special post-election day assembly that's highly participatory to ask what's next. So this is, I think everybody agrees that this is a very uncertain period. So we're inviting civil society, movement leaders, organizers, independent journalists, scholars, and community members to come together for critical reflection and connection. And I'm really excited about laying out what it is that we're trying to do there. So we'll have insights and analysis from journalists like Norman Stockwell of the Progressive Magazine, Laura Flanders, and Erin Aubrey Kaplan, who's a contributing writer for the New York Times, Politico, and the LA Times. And they're going to share, as journalists, what they saw in this election cycle and just share their reflections. Then we're going to shift into a panel discussion with Matt Nelson, the executive director of Presente.org, Surin Mudliar, who is the coordinator of the How We Win Coalition, Dan Schladelman, who's a union strategist and senior advisor, and Sherry Honkala from the Poor People's Army. And then, so they are going to have a panel discussion that we'll participate in as members to actually listen to what they see. So we'll see journalists do a panel, then we'll have a series of questions, then we'll do movement leaders do a series, and then we'll have a series of questions. And then we're going to do a breakout on key topics like the future of voting rights, political violence, what are the elites doing, what are some grassroots interventions. I will say I'll be facilitating a session on democracy beyond elections, or deep democracy. We'll also be doing a participatory process to map what assets, skills, and knowledge exists for anybody who participates. Right now, we've already got over 100 participants, and I hope that Redneck Gone Green subscribers on Substack, listeners on YouTube, or this audio podcast will actually join. Michiala Catafano of Native Roots Network, Ben Mansky, who's a professor at George Mason University, and April Donner, an artist with Living World Studios, are going to guide us through that assembly process. And I want to be clear, this is more than just a debrief. This is a genuine call to action and solidarity. I believe that we are facing unprecedented challenges and threats to our communities. And it's in moments of crisis like this that new possibilities emerge. For us, this is more than a debrief. It is a genuine call to action. So we want to invite you to join us in this moment to collectively share ideas for immediate action and long-term organizing. Now, for many of you who are listening to this, I know already that you are, in fact, subscribers to us on Substack. You've probably already seen this, but I'm going to drop into the chat here the bit.ly, the URL link for the post-election assembly. You can also find that at the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network. If you're listening in, it's super easy. The U.S. Solidarity Economy Network website is at ussen.org. That stands for U.S. Solidarity Economy Network. Again, ussen.org. And I'll conclude with this, y'all, that this effort is our best attempt to say what would a participatory process look like that we actually plan out and strategize what it's going to take to rise above the electoral process? Yes, engage elections, but to go above it, to build the kind of worker self-directed enterprises, but also worker directed nonprofits, to empower workers, to use digital fabrication, 3D printers, to use the art and culture to do actual political education, to build the kind of people power that it's going to take to break through what it is that we're all experiencing. So again, this is election day. I know that for many people, you're going to be glued to televisions and or radios to try to figure out just what exactly is going on. So for me, like I know this, that no matter who is ultimately the president, I am going to have work to do. And that whether it's Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, there's going to be work that I have to do. Neither one of them are going to lead to the world that I want to live in. I do believe that Donald Trump is profoundly worse, but I also don't think that I think Kamala Harris and the neoliberals are creating the conditions that allow fascism. Yeah, it's political theater. I agree with you, Dave. So the point is that, yeah, go and vote. And I tell people all the time, if either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump reflect your principles and values, then you should absolutely vote for them. But if they don't, then you should take a look at alternative political parties and cast your vote that way. But at the end of the day, I'll say it again, I am not going to get into arguments or fights about how people are going to cast their vote. I don't think it's helpful. I approach every political disagreement saying, I hope that we can come out of this with as much unity as is absolute possible, even as we maintain our principles and values. So with that, I want to say thank you for coming on to Redneck Gone Green. I am very excited about what we've got in store for you in the future weeks. I think Jack I will be traveling. I'm happy to tell you that I have accepted an invitation to go to Ireland and visit with the folks at the Left Bloc, also known as the best of the Irish left, trade unionist and organizers. Kalia Kunai and I are going back on the road, but Jackrabbit is going to be hosting the show. And I think Jack Shahed Batar is going to be your guest. But stay tuned. I want to thank everybody for joining this conversation. Keep on keeping on. Peace.